Welcome to week 23 of our second year of our journey through the Word. We are continuing our journey with Job, and as we begin this week, we are hearing again from Eliphaz. As we hear Eliphaz's words, they would be great if Job were guilty, but once again, Eliphaz has already determined Job's guilt without any evidence. When Job responds to Eliphaz, his responses continually each time to declare his faith and his trust in God in spite of all that he's been through. We hear his words this time in this response to Eliphaz. We hear those words of faith and trust. In Job 23:10, Job says, "But he knows the way I take, and when he has tried me, I shall come forth as gold. My foot has held fast to his path. I have kept his way and not turned aside. I have not departed from the command of his lips. I have treasured the words of his mouth more than my necessary food." Job continues to hold on to God, to his ways, and to his words. Once again, these words stir Bildad to respond, and as Bildad responds, we see that Bildad has a way of always looking at the negative side of things. His understanding of God is very limited, and certainly, as we listen to his words this time, he has a very low opinion of mankind in general. As Job responds to Bildad, we see that once again, Job is declaring the greatness of God, which is such a contrast to Bildad's point of view. His faith and belief in God are not shaken, and he refuses to let go of his integrity and the belief that he's in right standing with God. Then Job talks about the valuable things that are hidden in the earth, earth's greatest treasures, and how that man seeks them out and searches them out and digs them out, and what he has to go through to find these valuable treasures. And he compares these things to wisdom and understanding, and says wisdom and understanding are more valuable than any of these things, because these are the hidden treasures of God, and they too must be searched out and dug for. As Job contemplates these things, Job asks the question, where then does wisdom come from? And where is the place of understanding? It's in the answer that Job gives, where wisdom and understanding are, that there's an interesting statement that he makes that can easily be overlooked, especially in our English translations. Listen to Job's words as I read Job 28, verses 23 through 27. God understands its ways, and he knows its place, for he looks to the ends of the earth and sees everything under the heavens. When he imparted weight to the wind and meted out the waters by measure, when he set a limit for the rain and a course for the thunderbolt, then he saw it and he declared it. He established it and also searched it out. Job's words are definitely speaking of creation. As a matter of fact, Solomon in his book of Proverbs mentions basically the same thing in Proverbs 3:19 through 20. Yahweh by wisdom founded the earth. By understanding, he established the heavens. By knowledge, the deeps were broken up and the skies drip with dew. So obviously, we see that there's wisdom and understanding, and at the very creation, God put wisdom and understanding for man, and that it's something that has to be searched. Now, these are the obvious things, but as we continue on, and to man he said, behold, the fear of Yahweh, that is wisdom, and to depart from evil is understanding. If the words preceding this verse are talking about God and creation and how God had set the limits and set the boundaries for creation, then who is this man at the time of creation that God is talking to? If we look at the word man in Hebrew, we would find that the word man and the word Adam, the name Adam, are the exact same word. And so I could actually and rightfully translate this scripture and this verse this way. And to Adam he said, behold, the fear of Yahweh, that is wisdom, and to depart from evil is understanding. And I believe that this verse is saying at creation, God did all these things, and he even spoke to Adam, and he told Adam where wisdom and understanding were to be found. Remember that God had commanded Adam before the fall that he was not to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. I also believe that as God would walk with Adam in the cool of the day, that God was giving Adam understanding of what evil is. He says, here's this tree. It's the tree of knowledge and good and evil. He certainly would have explained knowledge to Adam, and I truly believe he would have explained evil as well. And so we go on from there, and Job longs for the good old days when everything was going well, when God protected him from harm on all sides. And in his reminiscing, Job says these words, as I was in the prime of my days, when the friendship of God was over my tent, when the Almighty was yet with me, and my children were around me. Once again, there's a phrase that I think we would do good to look at, and that I think Job was saying much more than what our translators have been able to capture here. That phrase, when the friendship of God was over my tent. That word friendship, if I talk about friendship, it can be a very light friendship. I like you, you like me. And so it's talking about feelings and fondness. But this word that's translated friendship is far deeper than that. The Hebrew word is sod. And this word sod, it doesn't speak of a friendly feeling, although I'm sure it can encapsulate that. But this word speaks of secret counsel. It speaks of confidential speech. If you do a keyword search for those who like to dig a bit deeper, and you look at every time this word sod is mentioned, you're going to find that it often refers to secrets and to secret counsel. And so what is it that Job longs for? He longs for the day when he and God were able to communicate with each other, and God revealed the mysteries and gave him the secret counsel. And so Job is looking for a very intimate friendship, that kind that you tell your deepest secrets to your dearest friend. Job is determined to have his day in court, and he wants to call on God to reconcile what he feels is this wrong. He says it this way in Job 31:6, let him weigh me with accurate scales, and let God know my integrity. It's these words that cause Elihu the Buzite to finally speak up. He's been sitting there quietly. He's just a young man, and he's been showing respect to these aged men, thinking that certainly wisdom and knowledge dwells in them. But as he hears their words, he begins to be stirred up inside. As a matter of fact, he goes on to say, he says, I'm like an unvented wineskin. What does he mean by that? When you would take wine and you would pour it into the wineskins, and the wine would begin to ferment, it would begin to cause the wineskin to stretch, and the vapors and the gases would be inside the wineskin. And so to keep them from bursting, you would have to release some of the pressure. And he says, that's how I feel. I just feel like if I don't speak up, I'm going to explode. And so Elihu finally does speak up, and he's been sitting in this group of delegates. We haven't even known he was there. My question would be, how many others are sitting amongst them that are listening to these words? We really don't know. We know for sure there's Job, there's his 3 friends, there's Elihu, so there's at least 5. Were there others, young men, that sat there again and listened, but didn't have the courage to speak up as Elihu did? We don't know for certain. But one thing we do know for certain, we know for certain that there are a certain number of representations of descendants from Abraham, Who are these descendants and how do we see them? As we look at those who are sitting in this circle, we see that from Abraham's son Ishmael, we know that Ishmael and Esau became joined when Esau left his father's area and went down to Ishmael and married one of Ishmael's daughters. So we see that the line and the descendant of Ishmael is sitting there. And who is the one who's descended from that line? That's Job himself. We also see that Abraham had children by Keturah. We've already looked at that. We know that Job's three friends, who are Arabs, who have descended from Keturah. But you have to ask yourself, where is Isaac? We've seen Abraham's descendants through Ishmael, Abraham's descendants through Keturah, but where are Abraham's descendants through Isaac? That's what brings us to Elihu. We are told that he is of the family of Ram. And as I put up this genealogical line, you'll see that Ram is the 6th generation from Abraham. We remember that Job was the 5th generation from Abraham. As we look at the genealogies, you can look at the chart that I had given you last week and look at this week's charts. We will see that these people all are within that time period. We know that the three friends of Job were much older than Job, and they said, we're older than your father. And so as we look at these charts, we'll see that certainly in these charts, it shows that they were older than his father. Now we know that Elihu is much younger than them. And as we look at the genealogy charts and see the generations, once again, we see that Elihu would have been much younger than Job. And so these things fit in that time period. It is because Elihu is so young that he has respect for his elders, and he sits there as long as he could. But then when he begins to speak, he's angry with Job's three friends. He says, you've condemned Job without a fact to substantiate what you're saying. Elihu is not only angry with Job's three friends, but he's also angry with Job. He says, you feel that if you go to court with God, you're going to win your case. Now, if you stop and think what Job is actually saying, and maybe Job didn't even realize it as he was saying it, what he's saying is this: God, you're wrong. God, you are unjust in what you are doing to me. And God, you are answerable to me and should give an account to me. Elihu says, who are you that God should give his account to you? We may not understand what God is doing, but God does not owe you an explanation. And God is righteous, and God is good, and God is just. How dare you, basically is what Elihu is saying. How dare you to say God is wrong or unjust? Elihu is just beginning to give vent to his feelings and his words, and we'll be hearing much more next week from Elihu. This week, as you go through, may your ears be open to truth as we continue to listen to the counsel and the debate within this circle. May we have understanding, and may we hear the words and the meaning of the words that we read this week. Have a great week, and see you again next week.